G'day. For once I'm not out at Kahuta Railway Reserve. Today we're going to be doing a modification to my motorcycle, putting hard panniers onto the bike, hard pannier cases on the bike. Now it's a 2022 Suzuki GSX250R and there's not a heck of a lot of options out there. Jiffy does not make any frames to mount on it, and I can't find any table telling me what alternatives I could use, or like which ones might fit if given a bit of a push. So I've had to go with a more universal option, as you have seen from the title. In fact, options for the GSX are so limited that this isn't even the right tail rack for the bike. It's in fact a tail rack for a Yamaha YZ250 or Phaser 250 that I forced to fit. And by forced I mean I got my son to stand on one side while I leaned on the other side with a lever until I bent it into shape. And it's not the ideal situation, but at least it works. But you can't buy a tail rack for a GSX 250 for love nor money. I looked online for some universal options and found that SHAD from Spain not only make a very nice rigid pannier system, but they also have universal mounts. So they sent these, this is some of the bits and pieces. Not good for it. This bit is for mounting it on a vertical surface. This is the actual mount itself, and this is a placing bar for it, and you can mount it on a vertical surface or a horizontal one. So you don't need the vertical surface, so all I need is these two bits. And it came with an array of nuts, bolts and spring washers for mounting it to damn near anything. And that's what we're going to do today. Problem is, these bits, or this bit, will not mount on this tail rack. So that's got to go. So I went onto my computer and did some designing in a lovely little open source program called Gixxer, and I designed these. They fit together like that, well, work together like that to be a tail rack for the bike. I got them cut and folded up in Auckland, you can see down here. And after drilling some extra holes, I got the local powder coater to coat them up. These have mounting brackets for on the bike and mounting holes for the pannier frames. And these holes here are because this is a thin bit of steel. I don't want it bending, so I'm going to put some reinforcing on the underside. So now I have the bracing strap, which is just a bit of angle aluminium. That's how we say it here in New Zealand, aluminium. Not aluminum, not aluminium, but the aluminium. Aluminium, mate. So I've held that on with 3 M5 screws and some nylock nuts back, and that's just going to stop it from flexing downward when I put weight in the top box, which is going to sit up on here. Well, not flexing downwards, bending downwards permanently. This is only mild steel, it will not spring back. So, first task now, get rid of the top box and the tail rack so I can install these. And so here's the tail rack removed, This part's standard GV mounting plate which bolts onto anything, and that brings us to, if you see where the plate's got a whole lattice work of little holes in it, and in my cunning design for the halves of the tail rack, I have put these diagonal slots. Now one of those, wind's picking up. I haven't got a drunk cameraman, I've got no cameraman, and the wind is having a field day. So yes, I have these diagonal slots cut here. One of those holes, well, 4 of those holes, will mount up with some of these in here. And the bolt won't be able to move sideways or forward and back because of the diagonal slope and being constrained by the holes that are already in the plate. So if the hole in the plate matches here, the bolt's going to go through, the plate won't let it go anywhere, and nor will this. It was the easiest way I could think of to make a set of universal holes that would mount up with pretty much any blanking plate. Air New Zealand, and I thought living out in Sanson was bad with Oahakia Air Force Base nearby. Now just getting a look at the inside of the back of the bike. There's 2 holes there and 2 holes there where these are going to mount. So, having mounted the camera where it can point at this, we can now start getting this positioned. To bolt in place. Oh man! Not good for it. Okay, I just dropped a washer down inside it, but it's okay, I have spares. Just putting this on roughly at the moment, and kind of loose because I'm going to have to adjust both sides. So that's the rough idea. Now I just got to angle these up so that they're both balanced and equal, and tighten them down. It's looking good. Okay, after a goodly amount of faffing around, I've now got those bolted in place securely, and the next thing of course is to true this up a bit by putting the Jivy mounting panel on the top, and that will give additional strength and support across there. And now, as you can see, the holes in here and the slots underneath line up quite nicely. I haven't tightened it yet, but I've got it lined up so that it'll sit where I want it to. Now I'll just tighten that up and I'll have my jivvy top box mount put back on the bike. Okay, all tightened down. Just got to put the blanking plate back on. And screw that down. All that work that I've just done just to get to basically where I was at the start of the video. Okay, now we're finally at the point of mounting the actual brackets on so I can use the panniers. So that just mounts on there. A washer, spring washer and nut. Go on the other side. You know, anybody puts in the comments that I might have been better off doing this while these things were off the bike, it's probably right. So there is how it fits. There is a bracket that goes from here down to the passenger peg, that angled thing I showed you earlier. I'll put that on soon, but this is where that's going to go, and I'll put the other one on, tighten that up, and we'll get to the angle brackets. So, had that bolted up there. It comes down to this, and we have this angled piece of thing here which goes down and mounts to the underside of the pillion footrest. Now to that end they supplied a number of really useful looking bolts, shims and bushes of various sizes, of which, juggling here, this I've already determined is the right size. So the next step to do is remove the split pin that holds that in place, take that pin out and replace it with that bolt assembly so I can then mount that. And it looks to me like hole number 3 is the one that we want here to fit in and hold it in place, and that just provides extra rigidity to the bottom of the pannier frame, stops the weight of the panniers from bending things down too much, and stops it from collapsing inwards if it's been pushed against something. So that's the next step there. Firstly, to replace the pin in that, and next to confirm that size and cut this off shorter. And as calculated, the bolt fits perfectly. 3 holes is indeed where it had to be, and now that's all nice and solidly bolted together, and this ain't going anywhere. So that's it. That's now rather solidly locked onto the back of the bike. So that's the universal fitting kit, or part thereof, for the SHAD Pannier systems. It's looking good, looks really, really good, and it doesn't ruin the lines of the bike. It actually looks quite minimalist and sporty, rather than being a big bulky Hulk and Drake thing that gets in the way of the wheels. For the panniers themselves, I've chosen the SHAD SH23 plastic panniers. I've chose those because it's a good size and they're not too big to make the bike back end too bulky. And we'll get those put on. Mounting the pannier box is as simple as placing the hook that's there on here. Pushing the latch down on the top and locking it into place so that it's secure. Taking it off, it's just as simple, open it up and it's ready to go. And so there we go, both the panniers mounted, easy on, easy off. The fact that they're lockable is actually the lowest priority for these. I was after something that was decent size and was pretty much totally waterproof, unlike mucking about with cloth bags and liner bags. If I put one of those things down on the wet ground, doesn't matter how flooded the ground gets, this is effectively a plastic bucket. It's going to protect the contents of the pannier bag, of the pannier box. There seems to be something missing. Oh yes, now we're talking. Looks just like I bought one. So it's finished. Only question left is what we do about the old towel rag that came off it. And the obvious answer is Pannier bike.